Easter. It's the high holy day of the Christian church. And there will be people present who have not been within the doors of the church since last Easter, or perhaps since last Christmas. They come on Christmas Eve as well. There is often the temptation to use the day to do all the evangelism you have wanted to do all year. After all, they're a captive audience, the like of which you may not see again for a very long time. Resist it. The message for Easter must be, Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. And it is one that all Christians need to hear again each Easter Sunday, no matter how many times they have heard it in the past. The Gospel text, whether taken from John or from Matthew, as the readings are in this year be, reminds us of the mystery of love and the promise of our own resurrection. The competition of Easter lilies, spring flowers, new dresses, excited children, unexpected and sometimes overwhelming visitors should not be allowed to overshadow the glorious life-saving moment of Jesus' overcoming of the grave. The idea of overcoming death must be the message of the moment. And the realization that there are many forms of death and death in life situations that may be present among the gathered congregation makes the necessity of proclaiming new life critical. We live in an age when physical death is not the only way that we die. We live in a time when people experience death of dreams, death of hopes, death of expectations, and each one comes to the encounter wanting a word of life. Each text showcases the encounter with Mary Magdalene and should be a reminder that each Christian is also privileged to have a one-on-one encounter with Christ. Mary's encounter offers a model for our own encounter in that we too can ask the important questions of life and expect that the answer will come from Christ, who knows each of us by name. Through these Easter texts, in celebrating the resurrection of Christ, the preacher is given an opportunity to gather the people of God and to invite them into the celebration of new life that Easter Sunday represents. It's no accident that Easter Sunday morning was the day of baptism for Christian converts in the early church. Baptism signifies new life, and Easter represents the new life that Christ has earned for us through his death and resurrection. That's the message of every Easter. That's the message that the people of God come, not knowing that they need sometimes, but needing for the life that deals so many things that can cause them to feel that they are just the walking dead. That is what Paul is reminding the early church. His word to the Colossians is that resurrection and new life means just that. It calls for a new way of living and being that is focused in Christ. So the challenge here, the challenge for the preacher, is to get that message across to the congregation without losing the joy that such a life is possible only through Christ. In a time when free grace is what so many expect, when we expect to receive newness but not have the responsibility to live into that newness, we must resist every temptation to simply speak about joy without offering the people of God the opportunity to live fully in the newness of Christ. Now, we all know that every Sunday is a day for celebrating the resurrection of Christ. But on Easter Sunday, the events captured in the text name the reality of Christ's victory over eternal death. And that message cannot be delivered too often or too many times. Certainly it belongs on every preacher's lips on Easter morning. And it also belongs on every Christian's lips. I would love it if every service on Easter Sunday in every church or every Christian gathering anywhere and everywhere in the world began with that age-old greeting that I named earlier. Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. That is the mantra that every leader of Christians must keep foremost in her or his heart as they approach this glorious celebration of the church. On Easter morning, think about this. The risen Christ meets us each moment of life and deserves a grand celebration, greater than any graduation, greater than any wedding, greater than any presidential inauguration, inauguration. So let's celebrate. Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed. Thanks be to God.